He thought I didn't know about his affairs until I did this. That was the headline in my head the night I finally closed the door on Jason and everything he'd been pretending wasn't happening. If you want a story with heat, heartbreak, and a tiny plan that felt like revenge without violence, sit with me for a minute. I'm Emma. Jason and I met in college, late night study sessions, road trips to the beach, the kind of chemistry that made people say we were meant to be. He was funny in a crooked grin way, and I loved him the way you love a song that keeps getting better. For 3 years, we built a life with 2 coffee mugs, a cactus on the windowsill, and a joint Spotify playlist that somehow knew what we both needed at 2 a.m. Romance, remember? Real, messy, glow-in-the-dark romance. Then the small things started. A lipstick mark in the laundry, a scent of perfume on a sweater that wasn't mine. He'd come home late and explain with a laugh about work, and I believed it because believing hurt less than asking. I would catch myself replaying an old message again and again, trying to convince myself I was being paranoid. I kept telling friends I was overreacting because a louder truth felt impossible to face. One evening, my friend Ava, who has zero patience for lies, called me, voice clipped, and said, "Emma, check your phone. Now." Jason had left his tablet on the couch after a weekend run. I hesitated. I wanted to respect privacy. But there was a knot in my stomach that felt like a deadline. Either I knew or I pretended not to and slowly dissolved. I opened his messages. There were texts that read like a secret life, chemistry, plans, photos that belong nowhere near our kitchen table. Not just one mistake, but a pattern. Affairs, dates, a casual cruelty of compartmentalized love. The immediate urge was chaos. Throw the tablet, run to him, shout until my voice broke. Instead, I sat on the couch and cried, long and hard. When the crying stopped, a peculiar calm settled over me, the kind that comes when your hands finally unclench around something burning. I decided to do something that surprised me, not dramatic, not illegal, not cruel. I would make him face the whole thing, not through anger, but through the quiet, unavoidable evidence of what he had chosen. Over the next week, I built a thing. I printed messages, saved receipts, screenshots of pay-at-the-door coffee orders at 2 a.m., calendar entries with names that weren't mine. I found flower delivery confirmations to addresses I didn't recognize. Then I did something small and domestic. I bought a scrapbook. I included the old photos of us at the pier, ticket stubs from a movie we saw drunk, the Polaroid where Jason's hair looked ridiculous and perfect. Between those, I slipped the proof, the moments that betrayed our life, dates lined up against our anniversary, text threads sandwiched between our happy snapshots, the receipts that read like a hidden map of lies. Everything about the scrapbook was calculated to be simple and devastating. It wasn't a trap made by cruel hands. It was a quiet museum of truth. I titled the front, "What We Were." On the back, in small letters, I wrote, "Decide what you want to do with the rest." I invited Jason out for what he thought was a celebratory dinner for our anniversary. He showed up in the same crooked grin, kissed me on the cheek like nothing had changed. The restaurant was familiar, the place where he'd once taught me a terrible song on his guitar, and where I once spilled wine on his lap, and we laughed until we cried. He sat across from me and ordered our old favorite, the thing we'd always split because he loved it more. The waiter lit a single candle, and for a second I let nostalgia sweep me. Then I asked him to open something I'd brought. He got slightly suspicious when he saw the scrapbook. He joked, "You made a mixtape?" The joke died when he flipped to the first page and saw our first photo. The polite smile faltered as he turned the next page and the next. Somewhere between the ticket stub and the printed receipt from a hotel, his hands started to tremble. He swallowed. "Emma, what is—" he began, and there's a kind of desperation in the voice of someone who has been cornered by their own choices. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I watched him read like someone watching a play in which they're both actor and villain. His face went through the 5 stages of recognition: denial, confusion, the small triumphant hope that I'd be wrong, and finally the dead weight of admission. I didn't mean for it, he started, then stopped. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw shame rather than anger. Why? I asked simply. The question was less about the logistics and more about why we're allowed to be broken like this. He tried to explain loneliness, work stress, a stupid mistake turned habit. He said things men say when they're trying to stitch themselves back together and don't know how. There was pleading in his voice. There was also a version of him I loved, the man who could still make the candlelight catch his jawline perfectly. The romantic tension between us in that moment was raw and brutal, part of me remembering the times we had kissed in rain and thought forever. Another part cataloging the quiet betrayals that had crept in. I did something that was harder than dramatic exit. I listened. Then I closed the scrapbook, slid it across the table, and said, "He thought I didn't know about his affairs until I did this." My voice was steady. I told him I'd given him the chance to explain to me directly before anyone else had to know. I told him I wanted honesty, not to salvage the old version, but to understand what he wanted for the future. He admitted he had been seeing more than one person, that it had become easier to lie than to leave. He apologized in the way of people who have been caught, immediate regret and immediate expectation of forgiveness. I didn't forgive him that night. Instead, I told him I needed time, that our biggest act of love might be letting both ourselves go. I walked out of the restaurant with a scrapbook under my arm, the candle blown out behind me. People might imagine a dramatic street confrontation, but the real power was quieter. I reclaimed the narrative. I didn't break him, and I didn't pretend I couldn't be broken. I chose a path that kept me safe and honest. Months later, people asked how I could live through those days. The truth is, it was messy. I slept on a friend's couch, I deleted his number, I learned to cook something new for myself. The romantic tension didn't vanish overnight. Longings are stubborn, but so did the habit of making excuses for someone else's choices. I wrote on a forum, I cried into ramen, and I watched the sunrise without sharing it. It sounds small, but it was revolutionary for me. This story isn't about humiliation, it's about clarity. He thought his secret was invisible. I made it undeniable, not to hurt him, but to save myself from the slow erasure of dignity. If there's a takeaway, intuition is valid. You can build a life with someone who belongs to you in every way and still be betrayed. How you respond matters more than how they betrayed you. For me, the scrapbook was both evidence and a map, a way to step out of a half-life and toward whatever comes next.